So today I'm chatting about a historical fiction novel with a twist. There's a golem. Intrigued? Stick around. Hey everybody, my name is Roger and welcome to my channel, Rogers Reads. So today we're chatting about Alice Hoffman's latest book, which is entitled The World That We Knew. I'm a big fan of Alice Hoffman. I've read quite a few of her novels, one of my favorite being Practical Magic. In fact, there was a movie created from the book too, which was also very good. But The World That We Knew, this is a historical fiction novel that opens up in 1941 in Berlin, during the time when the Nazi regime is coming into power. So aware of how bad things are becoming for Jewish people, a woman named Hani visits the local rabbi and begs him to create a golem, a mythical Jewish creature made from mud and clay to protect her daughter. Now the rabbi just freaks out and refuses, utterly refuses, but his young daughter, Eddie, overhears the conversation and she agrees in secret to create a golem for Hani's daughter, Leah. So Eddie accomplishes what is said that only men can do, and she brings her special golem to life. So the golem is given the name of Ava, and she, it's a female golem, is sworn to protect Leah, the little girl. So Leah and Ava flee Germany for Paris, but as it turns out, they aren't safe there for very long either, and soon they're running for their lives. So though there is a magical realism aspect to this story, this is far from being a fairy tale. It's quite a heartbreaking story as Leah, Ava, and the other characters in this story witness one horrifying atrocity after another at the hands of the monstrous Nazis. So through the author's brilliant storytelling and memorable characters, we really get a feeling for the depth of the suffering that the Nazis imposed on innocent people. And that's what made this novel really stand out for me. It was the deep, intense, and meaningful relationships between the characters and how their lives all intertwined and collided. I also felt that it was a heartfelt tribute to the brave souls who, in a time marked by evil and death, risked their lives to help the many Jewish people to safety. So in these characters we see heartwarming kindness, beauty, and sacrifice as they all fought the evil in their own way by saving lives. So in this way, the author gives us the best of humanity in these heroes, just opposed with the monstrous insanity of the Nazi regime. So we have a doctor who treats resistance fighters, nuns who protect refugees, underground groups who lead people to safety across the borders, individual people who house and feed and hide the persecuted, and many, many more. So this was such an emotionally engaging story that I teared up several times throughout. And I'll admit that there were many passages that I found difficult to read. Passages about those who didn't escape, those who were rounded up and taken to the death camps, and those allies and resistance members who ended up murdered. And yes, many of our favorite characters ended up among the dead. But though this was undoubtedly bleak in parts, there was always the thread of love, hope, and humanity at its core, all of which kept people moving forward even in those darkest of times. So in the midst of these chilling atrocities, the author shows us the kindness, compassion, and love of so many honorable characters, and in so doing transforms this into an uplifting and moving story. And you know, the theme of love was also quite prevalent throughout the narrative, the characters' love for each other and their love for life. So the book, it explores many themes of such as cruelty, war, humanity, of mothers and daughters, faith, fear, sacrifice, and loss, but also illustrates courage, bravery, love, and humanity, as well as the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. So though Ava, the Golem, played a big part in this story, the horror that the Nazis brought down upon millions of people was always at the forefront of this novel. Now, the use of the Golem as a plot device in no way dilutes the unimaginable crimes of the Nazis, who were referred to as demons in this story, or living monsters. So what was interesting is that Ava, who is the actual monster in this story, turns out to be more human than many of the humans, and she ends up representing for Leia a mother's love. So I felt that the magical realism aspect really helped the reader to get through some of the more gut-wrenching and emotionally overpowering scenes. Now, in addition to the Golem, there was also the appearance of the Angel of Death and of a dancing heron, the bird, as we see on the cover here, both of whom played fascinating roles in the story. This book is also meticulously researched, and I learned a lot about this time period that I didn't know before. And actually, the author, Hoffman, stated that she traveled to France and visited many of the places that hid refugees during this time period. She also met and interviewed Holocaust survivors both in France and in the United States, and I was surprised by the amount of history that the author incorporated into the story. So all in all, the world that we knew is an intense, sometimes brutal, no-holds-barred historical fiction novel of courage and sacrifice, featuring characters unlike any you've ever seen. You know, in my opinion, the beauty of this story lies in the successful balance between historical fiction and mythology, and the author blends the real and the mythic seamlessly. Yes, it will break your heart into a million pieces, but then slowly glue them back together. So in this way, it's simultaneously heartbreaking and heart-mending with an underlying current of hope throughout. Additionally, I found Hoffman's writing to be evocative, eloquent, and stirring, and is overflowing with gorgeous imagery and lyrical prose. So though this is definitely much heavier than her other novels, I'm really glad this book crossed my path. And for me, it's a solid 5-star read. So did you like this video? If so, please click the like button below, as that really helps my channel out. As always, I thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all your support, and I will talk to you all in the next video. Roger and out.